we open it up and we look inside like this, right? See? And inside, look, you can see the bridge. You guys may not know this, but I've actually rigged it up so I can do a minor control. I can do minor control with the control thrusters of the Dingwall. So if you'll excuse me, I'll demonstrate it here in a moment, okay? See that? Wasn't that cool? Welcome to episode 5 of Lower Decks. If this is indeed a 10-episode season, we're at the halfway mark. Isn't that great? Before you know it, it's gone already. It's true what they say, time flies when you're having fun. Except we're not really having that much fun. And it's a little bit of a chore to watch it. But it's not all bad. This episode was a complete mixed bag. I've never seen a show waver so hard on its tone. Is it a lot to ask from what is billed as a comedy? Is it a lot to ask for tonal consistency? I don't know. It's not my job to know. But it is my job to review this episode. This episode was called An Embarrassment of Dooplers. You know I love me some strange aliens, and I feel that Star Trek comedy should first arise from strange aliens. And this episode has Dooplers. What a Doopler is an alien who, in their species, when they are embarrassed, they duplicate as a defense mechanism. So imagine a complete copy of myself is created directly beside me for defense purposes if I'm embarrassed. So if you say, "Oh, I think you're bald and stupid, and your YouTube videos suck," I'll be like, "No, that's not true," and I'll just divide in two like I was some type of amoeba. I'm not an amoeba, though. I'm a Starfleet officer on the U.S.S. Dingwall, and I don't take no shit. Yeah, that's right. The Cerritos is basically involved in a classic Star Trek story trope, something we see an awful lot of in TNG, which is that show called The New Guys. Remember that? Star Trek The New Guys? TNG? Get it? Wink, wink. Where they have to escort a dignitary to a conference somewhere, and they're going to this starbase, and they're really going for the party afterwards. I can relate personally. I've been to many a Starfleet after party, and it's a heckin' good time, let me tell you. So they go to this starbase with the Doopler on board, and wouldn't you know it, they accidentally get him embarrassed. And the effect is exponential, because you embarrass him once, he duplicates, you embarrass him again, and then those two, right, become 4, and so on and so on. So you can imagine, in a short while, the entire Cerritos will fill with Dooplers. What am I gonna do? And this is causing all kinds of havoc for the crew. It's supposed to be on their merry way to the Starfleet conference on the space station. By the way, they get there and there's some very old looking ships. You'd be mistaken for thinking this was a museum. I swear I saw a Daedalus class, and they're old to me, okay? And this ship is almost as old as the Daedalus class. And this ship is ancient, and it's been through 1,000 refits. And yet we have a mostly intact looking Daedalus class at this starbase, and also an ancient looking Andorian vessel. What's the deal? Did we want to just put cool looking ships there just for no reason and just leave that gun underneath the table with everyone wondering who was going to shoot it? Strange comparison to make, but you get the point. In the A plot, they get to this starbase, and the crew essentially figures out that a Doopler can be unduplicated by getting angry at him. So you get angry, and you just basically curse at him and say naughty words, and he unduplicates. How does this make any sense? I don't know. It's a comedy. Does it have to? Huh? What's interesting, though, is that the captain tells the crew, I know you're Starfleet, but really, dig into them. Like, really come at them with the worst insults you can think of. I know you're Starfleet. In lower decks. Every episode, someone is dropping F-bombs. What world is the captain living in? Certainly not my Starfleet. Nobody here curses. Apart from me sometimes. And why would the captain think that I know you're Starfleet, but really have at it? Like really curse at them. It's just like saying, I know you're a dog and all, but I really want you to sniff those other dogs' butts. I know you're a dog, but I really want you to sniff the other dogs' butts. See how the comparison works? A little weird. So the Dooplers are defeated, and they get to the space station. But what's going on with Mariner, Tendi, Rutherford, and the Boyms? Well, Boimler hatches a harebrained scheme to sneak into the party by pretending to be his duplicate. Get it? Pretending to be his clone who was serving on the Titan, a high-status position which would guarantee him access to the party. So he wants to pretend that he's William Boimler, I think is what his name was. And he was going to bring Mariner as his personal guest, right? Because I guess you were allowed to bring one more person with you, which I guess makes sense. They go to the starbase, and they don't know where the conference/party is. Honestly, this is the plot. They don't know where it is. They cannot figure out on the starbase where the party is. So Mariner decides to ask a former associate on the starbase where it is. But he won't tell her until she does a job for him, which is transporting what appears to be Data-themed bottles of shampoo. Data from the New Guys, TNG, bottles like this. And it's in the back of like a truck. And they have to physically drive it somewhere. And then they get pulled over by station police. And it turns out that underneath the bottles of shampoo, there was Klingon disruptors. Am I describing Star Trek? Like, what is going on? How are we driving a wheeled vehicle around the starbase with smuggled Klingon weapons on it because we needed to figure out where our party was? Like, you can't just ask somebody. You can't just, like... I'm sure there's some type of scanner on the Cerritos where you could just covertly peek around, to see where people are, life scans and all that. They already said they wouldn't notice one unsolicited transporter beam. They already took their time to mention that. What with the confusion regarding the Dooplers. So Boimler and Mariner decide to run from the police of the station instead of telling the truth. Okay, a Starfleet officer's first duty is to the truth. So they don't stop. They try to outrun the station police. And they basically crash through every single different venue at the starbase. It's just horrific. It goes on so long that it stops being funny after the first 5% of this trip. And it goes on and on and on. There's so many sight gags. Oh, my brain was just gagged out. I was ball gagged by this, I guess you could say. And they almost kill somebody, but then drive the car, I guess, into the aviary of the starbase, crash it into the water. The water becomes soap from it becomes like bath water, essentially, because of the Data shampoo. And they basically I can't even think about how did they figure out where the party was? It was something obvious. It was something they should have known anyway. And then they just go there. And I think Mariner has an offhand comment about, why didn't I just guess that it was there? I think this might be the worst written episode so far this season. If you can't tell, I didn't really like it. But it is a mixed bag, and I'll get to why. Mariner and Boimler try to go to the party once they find it. Boimler gets in, but the person who is allowing people in and out of the party checks this list. Mariner's not on it, and she admits that she was on the Cerritos. And the person there says something like, sorry, only class and above allowed. So we're putting the classes of ship in a hierarchy. Okay, that's fine. But I couldn't figure out what he said. I ran it back a few times. On the service I have to watch it, I don't have subtitles. And I couldn't figure out what he said. It was like Nuna class. I know there's the Luna class, but that's not a low class class at all. But does anybody know what he said? I couldn't hear it. Nuna class and above allowed. Nuna something. I don't know what he said. But anyway, I guess you had to be on a cool ship to get into the cool Swankamax party. Regardless, Mariner couldn't get in. Boimler, my favorite moment, Boimler felt bad, basically, about being at the party without Mariner. And so he went back to find Mariner at a deserted bar on the starbase just to be with her. And, I felt something in that moment. I felt there was something going on, and I know there's something going on between Mariner and Boimler, and there was a moment where they really bonded in a special way in that bar. And then they look at the table, and Kirk and Spock have etched their name into the table, and they were at that bar so long ago. And I don't know, it really worked for me. And sure enough, the rest of the crew of the Cerritos couldn't get in the party either because they're on a California class, and they basically joined them at this bar, this historic bar. And I don't know, it was just an interesting moment, and it was such a well needed moment of humanity from Boimler and Mariner. And I hope one day Mariner mellows out and Boimler goes through a character arc where he becomes confident in himself and his abilities, and they fill each other's holes in their personalities, so to speak. I think that day could come, and I think it's going to be a wonderful thing when that happens. Does what I just described sound like something that would happen in an episode where the events I described earlier took place? Do they sound like they belong together in the same episode? Do they sound like they clash at all, you think? Like how this is the most schizophrenic writing I've ever heard. 1 minute we're driving a vehicle with illegal items in it away from police and crashing it, and then the next moment we're having a heartfelt connection between two characters, bonding over what appears to be alcohol of some sort, and reminiscing and really coming to terms with their lives and how they relate to each other. Do they sound like they belong together? Not the two characters I'm talking about, but the two scenes. I'll leave that up to you, but to me, I think it's a bit of a clash, and it really hurts the episode. The first half hurts this episode bad. Again, we have a B plot, or is it C plot, with Tendi and Rutherford, and man, these characters are they're getting the crap. They're getting the garbage plots again. It's fun seeing them together, but Tendy's just nothing. Rutherford's just nothing. Rutherford makes no sense to me anymore. Remember when he could take on a whole team of simulated Borg because of his implant, giving him advanced tactical information about the battle? Remember that? And then his mind got wiped, and then now he's just kind of like a blank person. He needs energy. He needs to be electrified a little bit. There's not enough Rutherford in Rutherford. So Rutherford and Tendi are building a model of the Cerritos, essentially. And I don't know how they're allowed to play with this, because the parts in it seem to actually be real. Like, the Cerritos fires a phaser beam. The model, by the way, fires a phaser and has a warp core that can explode. And it's all a little too real for me, for model building. It makes one wonder all kinds of strange thoughts about where they got it, how they made it, why they're allowed to have it, etc., etc. But they're building this model with a cacophony of Dooplers around them. And Samantha and Rutherford is looking at the parts of this model and seeing where he had left notes on it in his past life before his mind got rebooted at the end of season 1. And he can't understand what they're saying. He can't figure out what he had written on these parts, so he doesn't actually understand how to put back together the model properly. So we have just scenes of Rutherford and Tendi escaping the Dooplers, and then at one point they throw a piece of the warp core of the Cerritos model into a duct, and it blows it apart, and they escape. And then they're thinking to themselves, I think Tendi mentions they never actually intended to finish this model, and they were intentionally doing it wrong so that they could spend time together. It's all very strange. I mean, I know it's blatantly obvious that Tendi is in love with Rutherford, and Rutherford is too much of an engineer to understand, and we're just trying to drive this home so hard in every dang episode with no real movement. It's just the same. We're rehashing the same thematic points with Rutherford and Tendi as we always are. However, there is a scene where Rutherford opens the model up and he's looking down at the bridge on the Cerritos model, and I have to wonder if the people who made this show played with the same toys I did when I was a kid, because they open up the model and they're looking at the bridge, and just the way they look at it, and I think I had the same toy. I have it here. Just the way it was designed. There's just a moment where that just all came back to me, and I saw the bridge the same way they saw it on the Cerritos, and it came back to me. I saw it from the same eye that I did when I was very little. I was probably too young to be playing with that toy. It was a toy of the Enterprise D, the Galaxy class, and it basically opened up like this, and you could see the bridge. And it was probably for kids a little bit older than me, but I had it, and I have it right here. I took the nacelles off. They're long gone. Everything is gone from it, essentially. I don't have any of the characters anymore, or the shuttlecraft, but we open it up and we look inside like this, right? See? And inside, look, you can see the bridge. And this angle that you're looking at it from, this exact angle, you get to see it in the show when they're looking at their model of Cerritos. And I just have to wonder, did one of them have this toy? Because it's just so vivid in my mind, and I wonder if they had the same feeling. And just that little moment connected me to the scene in such a way that is beyond that is beyond any ability for me to explain it correctly. Me and the show had a bizarre kinship for a brief moment. So fantastic moments, horrifically punctuated by slapstick nonsense that feels really out of place and wasn't funny, worst of all. As for visuals, we saw a lot of bizarre, out-of-place ships at the starbase. I mean, maybe I'll put up a screenshot. No explanation given as to why these ancient ships are there. And we had an appearance from Outrageous Okana. That's right. My favorite episode of TNG, the Outrageous Okana. He appears in this episode. I guess he's the DJ at this starbase. Why not, I guess. This episode was rife with early TNG references, like Season 1 and Season 2. Now, I like Season 1 and Season 2 of TNG. Not a lot of people do, but I think they're quaint. There's something really cute about them and funny, and I often rewatch them. I find them to be very comfy. I don't know why. There's a strange goofiness that feels like it's between TNG and TOS, and it's really weird. And some of the scripts feel like repurposed TOS scripts. Go watch it now, Season 1 and Season 2 of TNG, with a fresh perspective, and just experience it. It's really interesting. It was a unique time. However, in this show, we've seen, it's kind of subtle, but there's a moment in the getaway on the starbase where Mariner and Boimler are driving away with shampoo and guns and what have you, where they go through a clothing store, and if you look, there's a tube like this sticking out, and the lid off the end with clothes hanging out of it. Exactly how they were presented in the TNG episode Encounter at Farpoint, which is the first episode of TNG, where Beverly says, "Oh, I'll take the whole bolt, have it sent to the Enterprise," blah, blah, whatever it was, talking about these fabrics. And also there was an appearance of fish people standing around who I believe appeared in Season 2 of TNG, I think. You see them on the transporter pad, and they, I believe they had put themselves in suspended animation to better prepare themselves for the rigors of transportation. Think of that what you will, but I seen them in this episode. They were there, the fish people, for lack of a better term. This episode was a mixed bag. It was a mess. It wasn't funny, but it had some touching moments that really worked for me, which is very subjective. It could be totally different for somebody else watching this, so I can see how this episode, for most people, could be a 3 or a 4. But, for me, the few moments of connection that I had with it, and some of the moments that really brought the characters together in a very human way, I feel like this episode, I really want to do a 5.5 for it, but I think I want to be generous and go with 6, but it's just not super funny, and this is supposed to be a comedy. So I'm going 5.5. Sorry, I think this is the worst episode so far. Had some wonderful moments, but too much chaff. Too much fog to cut through to get to the good little nuggets of gold. 5.5. Terribly sorry. You don't need to hear anything about my Star Trek Day reactions. Star Trek Day was September 8th. I have a video coming out on it, so I don't need to elaborate on that here. Suffice it to say, I was not super impressed with what I saw from especially Picard, but also Strange New Worlds. Prodigy I'm one of those few people who seems to be impressed by Prodigy. I don't know why. Everyone else I see on YouTube seems to hate Prodigy. I don't care. I don't really mind it. It seems alright. But that being said, this has been an embarrassment of Dooplers. Unfunny episode. Nice moments. A weird prevalence of references to early TNG. And an inexplicable appearance from ancient starships. With no elaboration given. A plot, B plot, C plot don't connect that well. Tendi and Rutherford are wasted again. And it's a 5.5er, guys. Sorry about that. And I'll be seeing you guys next time. Mark out.